The war did not arrive with warning. It arrived with silence before it. That morning, the village felt different, as if even the wind had slowed down to listen. Then came the sound of hooves. Sharp. Final. A royal messenger entered the village carrying the imperial decree. No welcome. No pause. Only command. One family. One man. One duty. The scroll was unrolled in front of trembling hands. And in that moment, every home understood the same truth. The war had already chosen them. Mulan stood behind her father, watching the weight of the words fall onto his shoulders. He did not complain. He only lowered his head, not in fear, but in acceptance. That was what broke her more than anything. She had seen him face storms, hunger, and loss without ever bending. But this was different. This was the Empire asking for his bones in exchange for peace. And he was ready to give them, quietly, without a single tear or protest. That night, the house did not speak. It only breathed quietly, like it was waiting for something inevitable. The walls remembered every laugh, every meal, every story her father had ever told. Now they listened to silence. Even the hearth fire seemed to burn lower, as if respecting the weight in the air. And in that silence, Mulan made her choice. Not from pride, not from anger, but from love so deep it became heavier than fear. She thought of his hands, calloused, gentle, tired. Hands that had lifted her when she fell, that had worked the earth until dark, that now trembled under the Emperor's decree. She could not let those hands hold a sword. If the world demanded a soldier, then she would become one. For her father, no ghost, no legend, just a daughter who refused to watch her father die. Before the first light touched the sky, she walked into the storage room. Dust hung in the air like forgotten memories. And there it stood, her father's armor. Heavy, cold, a life meant for someone else. She touched it once, as if asking permission from time itself. Then she began to change. Not quickly, not violently, but slowly, like letting go of who she had been. Her fingers trembled against cold metal, but she did not stop. With each buckle, something old fell away, a daughter's softness, a village girl's innocence. She did not mourn them. There was no time for mourning. Each strap tightened felt like sealing a promise. Each piece of armor felt like borrowing a future that did not belong to her. Then came the blade. Its weight was not just metal. It was consequence. She had never held a weapon against herself before. But this was not violence. This was sacrifice. The steel felt neither cruel nor kind, only necessary. And then her hair. One stroke of the blade. A soft fall of black strands to the ground. They landed like scattered memories, each lock a small death of the girl she used to be. The mirror, if there had been one, would have wept. But she did not look. No sound of pain, only silence of transformation. When she looked up again, the girl was gone. The reflection that stared back from the dark blade was unfamiliar, sharper, harder, wearing a face she had never met before. No softness remained in the jaw, no hesitation in the eyes, and a soldier stood in her place. He was a stranger, and yet, he felt more real than she had ever felt. The road stretched beyond the village like a line drawn by fate itself. Every step she took away from home felt like stepping further away from her own identity. The wind was colder than she remembered, or maybe she was just more aware of it now. The world no longer saw her as a daughter. It would see her as a soldier named Hua Mu, a name carefully chosen, a truth carefully buried. Behind her, the village slowly disappeared into distance, and ahead, a life built on silence waited. The army camp was not what songs described. There were no heroes here, only men trying to survive long enough to see another sunrise. Tents stretched across the land like scars across earth. Steel clashed even when no battle was happening. Because war does not only live in battlefields, it lives in waiting. Mulan entered without looking back. The commander barely acknowledged her. "Survive," he said. Nothing more. That single word became her introduction to war. It came without announcement. No trumpet of warning. No time to think. The enemy struck like lightning across the valley. Everything turned into motion and noise. Steel against steel. Dust against blood. Breath against fear. Mulan moved not as someone trying to be a hero, but as someone trying not to be discovered. Every movement carried double meaning. Every mistake could expose everything. And yet she did not fall. Not once. Days stopped being counted. Time became repetition. Wake. Train. Fight. Return. And hide. But hiding is never perfect. Small cracks began to appear in how she lived. A hesitation when others spoke too freely. A careful distance when soldiers shared closeness. Not suspicion yet, but difference. And difference is always the beginning of attention. Chen noticed. Not everything, but enough to feel something unspoken. He never accused. He never questioned directly. He simply observed. One night, he sat beside her near the fire. The flames reflected in tired eyes. "You don't belong here," he said quietly. Mulan froze, but he continued before silence could grow sharp. "And yet, you are the only one I trust beside me." That sentence stayed longer than the fire itself. Because trust is more dangerous than suspicion. The war did not become easier. It became heavier. Every victory cost something. Every retreat left emptiness behind. And slowly, the army began to look at each other differently. Not with brotherhood, but with calculation. And Mulan felt it. Eyes that stayed a little too long. Questions that never formed into words. She was no longer just another soldier. She was becoming something noticed. It began with small things. A pause during inspection. A glance that returned twice. A silence that lingered too long after her answers. The commander did not speak of it, but he remembered everything. And memory always becomes investigation eventually. Mulan felt it like pressure in the air. Something was changing, and she was running out of time without moving at all. The valley turned into fire and dust. The sky itself seemed to darken under the weight of war. Thousands clashed as one force against another. Mulan fought not to be seen, but to protect those beside her. Every strike now carried purpose beyond survival. Something had changed inside her. Fear was still there, but it no longer controlled her movements. That night, silence felt heavier than war. She was called into the commander's tent. Not for praise, not for reward, but for truth. The air inside was different. Still, watching, the question came, "Who are you?" Outside, the world continued. Inside, it stopped completely. Mulan exhaled slowly and chose honesty over survival. "I am Hua Mulan." No hesitation, no escape, only truth. The silence after her words did not break. It waited. The commander studied her face, not with anger, not with disgust, with something rarer, wonder. He stepped closer. His boots made no sound on the dusty floor. Then he spoke, slowly, each word chosen like a blade. "I have sent men to die. Good men, weak men, brave men, cowards." He stopped. Not one of them carried what you carried. He looked at her armor, the same armor she had put on in secret. So many moons ago, you wore a lie, but you fought with truth. You hid your name, but you saved theirs. He turned away. His voice dropped lower. "I should punish you. The law demands it. But the law never spent a night in the mud beside dying boys. I have." He faced her again. His eyes were wet. He did not hide it. "Hua Mulan, keep your name. Keep your honor. Keep your silence if you wish. But know this army will not forget you. And neither will I." He gestured toward the tent flap. "Now go, before I change my mind. Before the law changes it for me." She did not run. She walked, slowly, steadily, into the night. And the commander stood alone, listening to the silence she left behind. The silence did not break immediately. It stayed. It was not an empty silence. It was heavy, filled with the weight of every battle she had fought, every night she had hidden, every wound she had bandaged in secret. The tent walls seemed to hold their breath. Then slowly, understanding replaced shock. Not all voices agreed, but none could deny what had already been proven. Some soldiers would later whisper against her. Some would never accept what she had done, but even they could not look away, because she stood before them not as a woman caught in a lie, but as a warrior who had bled beside them. Courage does not change based on identity, and bravery does not ask permission. The war ended differently for everyone, but for her, it ended with walking home. No farewell ceremony, no song sung in her honor, just the quiet sound of her own boots on the path she had left so long ago. The mountains had not changed. The river still flowed the same way, the same road, but not the same person. Every scar beneath her armor was a memory. Every callus on her hand was a battle won. The girl who had left this road did not recognize the woman who returned. And perhaps that was the greatest victory of all. Her father saw her first. He was sitting by the courtyard gate, as he had every evening since she left, waiting for a daughter he had already mourned. The cane slipped from his hand when he recognized the stride beneath the dusty armor. And for a moment, words failed him. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came. Only tears, silent, trembling, older than the mountains. Because what returned was not a disguise. It was a truth that had survived impossible wait. She knelt before him, and he touched her face as if testing whether she was real. She was more real than any soldier he had ever known. Peace did not erase memory. It only softened its edges. The nightmares came less often now. When they did, they arrived as whispers instead of screams. The smell of blood had faded from her clothes, replaced by incense and tea leaves. At night, she still remembered armor, still remembered silence, still remembered fear. But the armor no longer felt like a cage. The silence no longer felt like a lie. And fear, that old companion, had become a memory rather than a master. But none of it controlled her anymore. Because she was no longer hiding. She was remembered, not as a legend, not as a ghost, but as a daughter who came home. And that, she finally understood, was enough. She took off the armor, but she never laid down the courage. Every story of silence deserves to be heard. Every warrior deserves a witness. If Mulan's journey moved something inside you, then do not let it end here. Subscribe, not because we ask, but because some stories are too important to forget. New journeys await. New silences will break. See you in the next tale.